Within the confines of prisons, there are surveillance cameras, but it appears that sometimes inmates forget they're under the unblinking gaze of the camera lenses. This explains why an inmate like Joshua Mullings was caught having sex with a prison guard, while Tavon White and Alex Coxon were accused of impregnating more than one guard each. There is also the case of Casey White, who a guard assisted to escape prison. Let's take a closer look at each inmate who broke prison rules and what the consequences were. Tavon White and the 4 pregnant guards of Baltimore City Jail. Meet Tavon White, a guy whose name was pretty much tied to the infamous Black Gorilla family, a tough gang known both inside and outside prison walls. So yeah, he was a big deal. The scandal at Baltimore City Jail took a personal turn with the involvement of 4 female prison guards. Charging documents reveal Owens had Tavon tattooed on her neck and Stevenson had Tavon tattooed on her wrist. These women found themselves at the center of a storm that blurred the lines between duty and desire, as each became pregnant by Tavon White, the inmate who had effectively turned the jail into his criminal headquarters. Their roles in the smuggling operation were not merely passive because they were active participants, aiding in the movement of contraband that ranged from narcotics to mobile phones. They got hit with some heavy charges like racketeering, money laundering, and dealing drugs. They had kids in the mix, born into a world of corruption. It was a tough spot to be in. Within the confines of the jail, White reigned as a supreme leader. He didn't just blend in, but he was the mastermind, pulling the strings of a smuggling scheme that flipped the whole place upside down. With his cunning and strategic mind, White found all the loopholes in the system. He used his friends inside and outside the jail to build a secret business, sneaking in phones, weed, pills, and smokes for a tidy profit. White's ability to command respect and loyalty from those around him was evident, and his influence over the guards became a pivotal element of his control within the jail. The department's response was swift and unyielding. The 4 women at the heart of the scandal were suspended without pay, and steps were taken to terminate their employment, signaling a zero-tolerance stance on corruption. Alex Coxon and the 18 female guards of HMP Berwyn. The good intentions of HMP Berwyn faded when several investigations uncovered a disgusting internal scandal between an inmate and 18 female guards. It started when they learned about a prisoner, Alex Coxon, having a relationship with a guard named Jennifer Gavin. The subsequent investigation revealed that Gavin had accepted £150 as a bribe to smuggle a mobile phone into the prison. The relationship was uncovered when the phone was found hidden beneath a laptop in Coxon's cell, and further examination uncovered explicit material that had been exchanged between the two. This wasn't just one event on its own. It turned out there were other staff-inmate relationships at HMP Berwyn. This discovery led to how 18 other staff whose names were not listed in the report were hired and monitored in prisons by inmates. People worried about how easily staff could be manipulated and the dangers it posed to prison security when rules were broken like this. The legal ramifications for Gavin were severe. She faced charges of misconduct in public office, an offense that reflects the seriousness with which such crimes are treated. The court proceedings, held at Mold Crown Court, revealed that Gavin had accepted a sum of money in exchange for smuggling the phone into the prison, an act that undermined the safety and security of the institution. During the trial, the court heard how their communication was enabled through the Snapchat application, highlighting the challenges modern technology poses to prison security. Gavin's defense acknowledged her actions, and she pleaded guilty to the charges against her. The court decided to impose an immediate custodial sentence, reflecting the gravity of the offense and the need for a deterrent to prevent similar incidents in the future. Gavin was sentenced to 8 months in prison, a period during which she would experience the other side of the criminal justice system she once served. The case also had consequences for Coxon, who received an additional 10-month sentence as the legal penalty for his role in the affair. Joshua Mullings. In this viral video, Joshua Mullings, an inmate, and Shania Begum, a prison guard, were seen intimate on camera, an act that's totally against prison laws. Joshua Mullings and Begum had engaged in an inappropriate relationship that included a range of sexual activities within the confines of a store cupboard. Shania Begum is a 25-year-old prison officer working at HMP Birmingham, a facility known for its strict rules and focus on rehabilitating inmates. Her role, critical to the maintenance of order and discipline, required a balance of authority and empathy, but things got messy when Begum, a professional, met Joshua Mullings, an inmate. It was within these confines that their paths crossed, leading to the genesis of an inappropriate relationship. It was between September 22nd and 29th, 2022 that the camera captured the incriminating evidence. The clear footage showed Shania Begum and Joshua Mullings having intimate moments. However, it was said that it wasn't a surveillance camera that caught the act, but a recorded tape that appeared to have been set up by the inmate. The visual record depicted a range of of activities, from play fighting and flirting to heavy petting, and ultimately to acts of penetrative sex. When word got out about Shania Begum and Joshua Mullings' secret romance, it set off a major commotion in the prison world. Suddenly, Begum went from being admired to being shamed as a young officer, and when her wrongdoings came to light, she found herself facing the very laws she used to enforce. The defense portrayed Begum as someone who had previously been seen as a good person, but who had made some bad decisions and let her feelings lead her astray. Her counsel, Andrew Baker, highlighted her deep remorse and her struggle to understand the unraveling of her once promising career. Despite the defense's plea for leniency, the gravity of the offense could not be overlooked. Shania Begum, once a custodian of the law, was sentenced to 16 months imprisonment, while Mullings was going to remain in the confines of the prison for the rest of his life. The 6 orgy inmates. Usually in jail, the sex you want you're not getting, and the sex you're getting you don't want. But that phrase may not necessarily work for these inmates who have chosen a special path to have sex with their partners through the ceiling of the prison. 6 prisoners in Greene County Jail came up with a clever plan that needed both smart and the right moment. It was like a secret game played in the one spot where they weren't supposed to have any privacy. The men, ages 44, 38, and 17, and the women, ages 27, 26, and 21, found a weakness in the jail's setup, a spot where the security cameras couldn't see. This discovery helped the women get to where the male inmates were. When night fell and the jail got quiet, they put their plan into action. Using nothing more than a shower drain, a tool found within their cell block, they carefully loosened the security screws that held the metal ceiling panels in place. The panels were then carefully removed, ensuring they could be replaced seamlessly to avoid detection. This wasn't a reckless move to defy authority. It was a carefully planned risk they took multiple times in September and October. They had turned the space above their cells into a nocturnal playground, complete with sexual adventures and the consumption of illicitly brewed alcohol. As the investigation deepened, the extent of the inmates' activities came to light. They had not simply found a way to meet, but they had established a routine that included hanging out, playing cards, and engaging in relationships that were as much about companionship as they were about physical intimacy. Record has it that they had their meetings 12 times before the arrest, sneaking into a place where they weren't supposed to. But as you know, every secret can only stay hidden for so long, and with each passing night, the danger of being found out grows. The inmates got busted after prison officials found notes in the women's cell which detailed the encounters they had with the male inmates. In response to these findings, a series of immediate security measures were announced, while all 6 inmates faced felony charges. Raymond Abraham. On a cold morning on February 3, 2021, a young prison guard found a remote-controlled vibrator in Rachel Martin's jacket pocket during a random search at work. This discovery set off a chain of events that would reveal a scandalous affair. 3 days after the initial search, officers descended upon Raymond Abraham's cell. Abraham, who was a prisoner under Martin's watch, was found in possession of items that no inmate should ever have. He was found with a mobile phone, which in the hands of a prisoner is considered a serious breach of security, women's underwear, 2 USB sticks, and an SD card. Record has it that the SD card had pictures of Martin in her underwear, which were not released to the public, but they were clear evidence of the inappropriate relationship between the guard and the inmate. As the investigation went on, it became clear that Martin and Abraham didn't just have a brief meeting. Instead, they had a deep and ongoing connection that grew over time. Martin was dismissed from her job, and she resigned within 2 days. However, leaving her job couldn't undo what had happened, nor could it halt the wheels of justice that had already begun to turn. Later investigations showed that they exchanged over $21,000 through bank transfers and cash deposits. This suggested their relationship had been turned into a business deal, which was quite inappropriate. The call records on 2 cell phones found at Rachel's place revealed hundreds of calls made between them from February 6th to March 16th, 2021. An examination of the phones uncovered around 1,900 WhatsApp messages, some of which contained explicit declarations of love. All of these were not also revealed in detail to the public. The scandal peaked when Rachel confessed to 9 misconduct offenses. The judge sentenced her to 16 months in jail, while Raymond would remain in prison. Dontel Keys. Charged with felony offenses, Smith's life took a dramatic turn when it was revealed that she had become pregnant by an inmate, Dontel Keys, whom she was supervising. Elisha R. Smith, at the age of 31, served as a corrections officer at the Pendleton Correctional Facility, a role that demanded a high level of responsibility and integrity. Her job was to supervise inmates and ensure the security and order of the institution. Among the inmates was Dontel Keys, who was serving a lengthy sentence for convictions that included reckless homicide, criminal confinement, and kidnapping. training, dating back to 1998. Smith's professional involvement with Keyes began when she was assigned as his caseworker. This role required her to work closely with inmates, providing them with guidance and support as they navigated their sentences and prepared for eventual reintegration into society. It was during this time that Smith and Keyes came into contact, an interaction that would later develop into a relationship exceeding the professional boundaries set by the correctional facility's regulations. The relationship between Elisha R. Smith and Dontel Keyes did not remain hidden for long. Investigators at the Pendleton Correctional Facility launched a thorough investigation after suspicions arose about the nature of their interactions. The investigation found evidence showing that Smith and Keyes continued to communicate even after Smith left her job at the prison in October 2016 to work at Marion County Community Corrections. The investigation found out that a baby girl was born on June 15, 2016, whose photo was not disclosed. This raised concerns about Smith's behavior during her time at the facility. Prosecutors, armed with this knowledge, filed a probable cause affidavit in Madison County Circuit Court, accusing Smith of having a sexual relationship with Keyes while she was his caseworker. More evidence against Smith came from DNA tests on both Keyes and the child, proving Keyes to be the father. Because of this, charges were filed against Smith on December 7th for official misconduct and sexual misconduct. Smith was then arrested and held at Madison County Jail on a $20,000 bond. Ronell Wilson. The start of Nancy Gonzalez and Wilson's relationship is hidden in the secrecy typical of forbidden connections. Gonzalez, tasked with keeping order and enforcing laws, felt attracted to Wilson, a man society condemned for his terrible crimes. The affair wasn't just a quick meeting, but a lasting relationship that lasted for months. It was a bond that, at first glance, didn't make sense. A relationship between a guard and a death row inmate, symbols of opposite sides of the justice system. Yet, Gonzalez and Wilson's emotional and physical connection deepened, leading to a series of sexual encounters that happened right in the prison. They kept their affair secret by meeting in secret and communicating discreetly. But in a federal detention center where everything is closely watched, their actions were likely to be discovered. During a regular investigation, their affair was uncovered, revealing a scandal that shook the Metropolitan Detention Center deeply. As a teenager, Wilson got caught up in street life and joined a well-known gang called the Stapleton Crew. He started with small crimes, but moved on to bigger ones to gain respect from others. The Stapleton Crew did all sorts of illegal things, like selling drugs and committing violent acts, and Wilson became more important in the gang as time went on. Wilson's criminal path took a serious turn in 2006 when he was only 20. On March 10th, he was part of a crime that not only determined his future, but also shook the community and the New York Police Department. That day, Wilson and his friends tried to rob an undercover operation, resulting in the heartbreaking deaths of two undercover detectives, Rodney Andrews and James Nemarin. During a gun-buy and bust operation, Wilson shot both detectives at close range, showing deliberate and ruthless intent. Wilson was swiftly apprehended, and the case against him was solidified by the weight of evidence, including eyewitness testimony and forensic analysis. The trial got a lot of attention from the public and the media. In 2007, Wilson was found guilty of 2 counts of capital murder, and the jury gave him the death penalty. This made him the first person in New York to get a federal death sentence since the federal death penalty came back in 1988. Anthony Lewis Adland. A correctional officer whose job is to enforce the law is now facing charges for breaking it. In his role, Adland had direct contact with the inmates daily. He was one of the many officers who patrolled the cell blocks, supervised activities, and managed the day-to-day operations that were critical to the functioning of the jail. The Heart of America Correctional Center follows strict rules like any other prison. Cameras are placed all over to watch and stop any bad behavior. However, it is alleged that Adland knew the layout of the facility well enough to identify and exploit blind spots in the surveillance system, areas where his actions could go undetected. The charges against Adland stem from 2 separate incidents. The first, occurring in December of 23, involved Adland allegedly engaging in sexual intercourse with a female inmate with name withheld. The second incident, in January of 2024, saw allegations of Adland receiving oral sex from another female inmate whose name was also not mentioned. According to the charges, these actions took place within the jail and at locations that Adland knew were not covered by the watchful eyes of the surveillance cameras. A correctional officer is more than a jailer. They are guardians of a system that, at its core, is about justice and rehabilitation. The charges against Adland represent not just a fall from grace, but a challenge to the integrity of the institution he served. Casey White. Casey White's escape, helped by Vicky White, played out like a carefully planned heist movie scene. On April 29, 2022, Vicky White pretended to take Casey White to a fake mental health evaluation appointment at the Lauderdale County Detention Center, but there was no appointment. She drove him out of the facility using a patrol car, which they left in a nearby parking lot. Then, they switched to another car that Vicky had parked there the night before. The CCTV footage played a big role in the investigation, where it recorded what happened before the escape. The footage shows Vicky White checking out of the Quality Inn hours before helping the capital murder suspect escape the Florence jail. In the video, Vicky, wearing her uniform, escorted Casey, who was in prison clothes and handcuffs, out of the facility. They seemed calm, giving no hint of the trouble that would follow. As the reality of the escape sank in, a manhunt of epic proportions was launched. Federal, state, and local authorities combed the nation, following leads and tips that poured in from across the country. The search for the fugitives was relentless, with the pair's faces plastered across news outlets and social media, making them some of America's most wanted. After the escape, a huge search began. Federal, state, and local cops searched everywhere, chasing up leads from all over the place. Before his famous jailbreak, Casey White was already in trouble with the law. He had a history of breaking the rules, and his crimes got worse over time. In 2015, White was implicated in a series of crimes, but it was the brutal murder of Connie Ridgway that brought him into the national spotlight. Charged with capital murder, he admitted to the murder and was sentenced to life imprisonment. At first, White was locked up in the William E. Donaldson Correctional Facility, where they keep Alabama's toughest criminals. However, for reasons pertaining to his legal proceedings, he was transferred to the Lauderdale County Detention Center. It was here, in this less secure environment, that the scandalous scheme that entangled Casey White with Vicky White took place. Gemma Cowperthwaite. Gemma Cowperthwaite's life took a surprising turn from being a law enforcer to a lawbreaker. It all started at the Sinclair County Sheriff's Office, where she was a highly respected officer known for strictly following the rules that apply to everyone, whether they're inside or outside of jail. But beneath the surface of this orderly existence, a storm was brewing. It was during this time that Gemma met her lover, a female inmate who would change the course of her life. The inmate with name withheld was a 22-year-old and a repeat offender with a long rap sheet, including 9 felony convictions, all revolving around fraud. As time went on, Gemma and the inmate started spending more time together and getting closer. The professional boundary they used to have started to disappear, and Gemma felt herself getting emotionally attached in a way she couldn't understand. The inmate's daily work pass became their ticket to building a stronger connection, letting them communicate beyond the prison walls. She broke the rules by giving her phone number to the inmate. Then, she let the inmate use her home to shower during work breaks. She thought she was being kind, but these choices started to ruin Gemma's career and her understanding of who she was. The affair, though vehemently denied by Gemma as being sexual, was a violation of the trust placed in her as a correctional officer. When the judge made the decision, Gemma was convicted and sentenced to 10 months behind bars. The sentence, though lighter than it could have been due to her plea deal, still meant confinement and the loss of her freedom. The professional repercussions were just as severe. Gemma was stripped of her badge and her identity as a law enforcement officer. James Ingerson. James Ingerson and Leanne Sauls started their relationship while Leanne was working as a prison guard in Vermont, where James was serving time for his many felonies. At the Vermont Department of Corrections, Ingerson and Sauls had a secret relationship. They didn't just have brief meetings that broke the rules of guard-inmate interactions. They had many meetings that led to Sauls getting pregnant. Their encounters were said to have happened several times in the staff bathroom. The year 2011 marked the beginning of their secret affair, and by May 2012, the evidence of their union was undeniable, as Sauls gave birth to a child whose gender was not revealed at the time of this report. When the baby was born, everyone found out about the affair, and that raised a lot of legal and ethical concerns. The state, acting upon the gravity of the situation, requested a DNA test from Ingerson, Sauls, and the newborn, a move that would scientifically confirm the paternity of the child and solidify the reality of their relationship. The law was clear on the matter. A 2006 Vermont statute, spearheaded by then State Representative Kurt Wright, expressly prohibited sexual relations between prison staff and inmates under their supervision. Vermont, the last state to enact such a law, now saw it violated in a most public and scandalous manner. Sauls, initially charged with sexual exploitation of an inmate, which led to a felony carrying a potential 5-year sentence, eventually pleaded guilty to a reduced misdemeanor charge of a prohibited act. The court issued her a 1-year deferred sentence, which held the possibility of removing the charge from her record contingent on her adherence to the law. Ingerson had a mixed view of the affair. He said he started it, but then he sued Sauls, the Vermont Department of Corrections, and the commissioner. Clovino da Silva. This video shows the moment Clovino da Silva was caught by the prison guards trying to escape by disguising as a lady. Clovino da Silva is known for his involvement in Brazil's drug trade, and this involvement led to him getting locked away in a tough prison. But Clovino wasn't someone who gave in easily. Despite seeming resigned to his fate like any other prisoner, he was hatching a clever plan. It needed boldness, accuracy, and a bit of drama. He decided to swap places with his daughter during a visit, leaving her behind while he made his unnoticed escape. To bring this plan to fruition, Clovino needed a disguise that could withstand the scrutiny of the guards. Throughout several visits, he carefully orchestrated the smuggling of the components he would need. His daughter, who was perhaps unaware of the role she was playing, brought items piece by piece. She carefully smuggled in a silicone mask that looked like her young face, a wig matching her long hair, glasses to hide his eyes, and clothes similar to what she wore. The escape day came, and the prison felt heavy with its usual hopelessness, unaware of the unfolding drama. Clovino's daughter walked in, hugged by her father, hiding the urgency of their secret mission. In the privacy of the visiting room, they put their plan into action. Clovino carefully put on the disguise, turning himself from a feared drug lord into a shy young woman. Heart racing beneath the silicone mask, Clovino walked out of the visitation room, copying his daughter's walk and gestures. He aimed to blend in with the departing visitors, hoping the guards wouldn't notice him as he moved closer to the gates, the line between being locked up and being free. As Clovino approached the final checkpoint, a guard got suspicious. The young woman's behavior seemed off, as she was too tense and too nervous under her calm appearance. In this video, he was led to the interrogation room, where he was requested to remove all he wore as camouflage. It was at this point he knew the game was over as his heart sank. If you enjoyed watching this video, then click on any of the cards on your screen for more exciting videos like this.